For this video demonstration, I'm going to go over the table saw, safety setup and procedure. This is a machine that you're going to use a lot in class. It's a very versatile machine, and that's why you use it so much. With its versatility comes complexity. So, that being said, this is probably going to be one of the longer videos that you watch on the machine because of its versatility and all the different things that you can do with it that I'm going to go over with you during this video demonstration. Again, you're going to want to have a study guide in front of you, okay, just like all the other videos to reference to. This is what I'm going to use to go over the machine with you, and then I'm going to demonstrate some different types of cuts that you can do with this machine so that you get an opportunity to see all these different things that you can do with a table saw. Very, very, very versatile. It does a lot of different things, and it's good to know all those things that you can do with this machine. So starting with, again, 1 through 4 is always the same on every sheet, but I'll go over them really quickly. You need to be certified on this machine, which means you need to take the quiz on it, get 80% or better. Once you do that, you're certified to use it, and you can use it in class. Number 2, remove jewelry, eliminate loose clothing, define long hair. Again, I roll back my sleeves, I took off my jewelry that I need to take off, and I make sure I have my lanyard tucked in. I don't really have long hair, but if you have long hair, tie it back. Make sure all guards are in place and operating correctly. This is the blade guard. Okay, this must always be in place for general cutting purposes. Now, our blade guard, in particular in class, is a pretty large blade guard. It's a good thing. It keeps our hands away from the blade. However, there are some cuts where I might need to move it out of the way. It ends up becoming a hindrance, or I can't complete the cut with it in place. If that's the case, then we will move it out of the way just for that particular cut. But for general purposes and for the quiz, you must always use the blade guard. Always. Always use proper eye protection. So again, wearing safety glasses, that's really critical no matter where you are in the shop, so please make sure you're wearing them. Number 5, make all adjustments, remove chips or dust with the power off. You don't do anything to this machine while that blade is spinning other than the cutting procedure. Don't clean off sawdust, don't be moving things around on the table surface, don't be clearing off cutoffs, okay? So when you run the material through, you're going to have a cutoff that's laying on the table. Let it sit there until the blade stops, and then remove it, okay? I don't want anybody touching anything near that blade. For 2 reasons. You could accidentally touch the blade, which would inevitably end up cutting you. Or you could bump that material into the blade and cause what's called a kickback. A kickback is where the machine throws a piece of wood, and it's going to throw it in this direction towards, our exit door back here. If somebody's standing back there, you're going to get injured. Or if you're standing in the way, you're going to get injured. So it's important that we don't touch anything on the table surface while that blade is spinning. Okay, resist that temptation. Number 6, never use a miter gauge or fence together in the same operation. So number 6 goes really well, if you're actually referencing this, it goes really well with number 8, never saw freehand. The rule with this machine is you use one or the other, never both. Okay, you never use both together. So what that's referring to is if I wanted to do a cut on this with my miter, you wouldn't want to set the fence here with the miter and cut like this. Okay, because what's going to happen is as I get through, it's going to cut fine, but as I get through the material, it's going to cut straight through this material. As I get through there, this piece that I'm cutting off is going to get pinched between the blade and the fence, and it's going to spin it out in a hurry. You're definitely going to cause a kickback. If you do that, you're going to cause a kickback. That piece is flying back. And whoever's standing in the way is going to get hurt. So it's important that you use one or the other, never both. You use the fence for ripping applications, where you're cutting with the grain, typically going the long way of the board. You use the miter for cross-cutting operations, where you're going across the board. Okay? You could also use the miter for cutting miter cuts, where you're cutting angles across the board. All right? The miter is also used for other different operations besides that, but for the most part, we use it for cross cuts and miter cuts. Okay? And we use a rip fence anytime that we're cutting with the grain or going a long way. So those are the 2 that you use most often. Now there are things called jigs. We're going to be using jigs in class. This is a jig. This jig goes over the fence, so we use that in conjunction with the fence. Okay? This is also another jig. We're going to be using this for our keepsake box project if you're in Wood 1. And when you run this through, we end up cutting our splines with this jig. Essentially, a jig is anything that is constructed to help guide the material through the cut. It's different from a fixture. We use a fixture on the miter saw. So after you use this machine, you go over, in Wood 1, you go over to the miter saw and you start cutting out your miters for your box. We fasten a fixture to that. We actually clamp a piece of wood to the fence to get the same length of cut. All right, so attaching something to a machine to get repetitive results is called a fixture. Something that you use to help guide the material during the cutting process is called a jig. Okay? We have several different jigs that we use in class. Other than that, it's always rip fence or miter. Okay? And even with the jigs, we're using the fence. Okay? So you're still using the fence for one of the cutting operations. So it's either one or the other, never both. Number 7, the saw blade should extend above the workpiece until the gullies of the blade have cleared the material. So I'll show you what a gully is. I actually pull the guard out so that you can see on the video. I'll put it back on when I do my cutting operation. So, looking at the saw blade, you have the teeth, which are pretty obvious to see, and then you have the spaces in between. That's a gully, right there, where I have my pencil tip. And what you want to do is the elevating hand wheel for this machine is in the front. And I'll show you that it raises up the blade. You want to set the blade so that that gully, which now this is too high for this material, that gully should just barely clear the top of the material. So I'm going to lower it back down where it should be, which was close to its original position. But that's where it should be, right there. So that my pencil tip is just barely above the material. Never ever touch the blade with your hand. That's why I'm using my pencil. Don't trust the machine. Okay, so just showing you that that gully is just above the material. Number 8 we already went over. That's, again, you don't want to saw freehand. Okay, so again, one or the other, never both. 9, never reach over the saw blade. So a lot of us are going to be doing cutting operations, maybe with the miter or even with the rip fence. We end up cutting the material, and there's going to be a piece laying off to the side, and you're going to turn the machine off, and the blade's going to be winding down. Don't, again, resist that temptation to clear material, because you're going to reach over the saw blade. So you should never ever reach over the saw blade. And when you're doing ripping operations, you are going to be pushing the material through, and I'm just kind of show you a sample here, but you're going to push the material through like this. Bring your hand on the back side of the fence. Don't bring it back across over the blade. The blade guard should be here, so you should be able to do it anyway, but essentially you don't want to bring your hand over the blade, bring it on the back side of the fence. A good habit of mine is I like to drag my hand off the back side of the fence. This way I know if I'm touching this back side of the fence, I'm not going to reach over the blade. It's a bad habit to do that. 10, use extra care and precaution when sawing large material or when using a dado or molding cutter head. So, if you're cutting big material, you need to be really cautious because that large material, if you shift it ever so slightly away from the fence or you move it a little bit on the miter, it could cause a kickback because you start twisting. Anytime you twist the board and the blade, that's a bad scenario to be in because the teeth are then going to grab the material and possibly throw it. So it's important that if you're cutting large material, which we may do a few pieces that are pretty large in class, you need to take extra precaution, make sure you think about everything, make sure your setup is good before you start the cut. Okay? So just take extra care with large material. Now, dado or boulder cutting head. I'm going to show you a dado blade. I'm going to install these for this demonstration. I'm going to show you how they work. But essentially, a dado blade is a set of blades. Okay? And I have a set here that there's 2 rim blades. This is a rim blade, and then this is a chipper blade. So there's 2 rim blades in the set, and then there's several chipper blades. And every single blade that you add to the set adds 1/8 of an inch to the cutting path. Okay, a dado is essentially a groove in a board, so you're not cutting all the way through the material. You're just simply cutting. Most of the time, it's halfway or 1/3 of the way through the material. So you're not cutting all the way through, and the idea is you create a groove in the material for another piece of wood to fit into. So I'm going to cut a dado in this class, or in this demonstration. I'm going to show you how to cut a dado using this dado set. But you have to take the original blade out of the machine, okay? And you need to install what's called the rim blade and the chipper blades and to the width that you want. So you keep adding blades until you get the width that you want for your cut. What's really important when you do this is you need to make sure you turn off the machine. And when you install blades on the machine, you want to make sure that the teeth are pointing towards the operator. You always want to point them towards the operator. Another good habit with dado blades, and this is what you should definitely do, in order to keep it balanced, you should alternate the blades. So when you put the chippers on, you want to alternate them like that, make them crisscross. The next one I go diagonally there, and the next one I go diagonally there. The reason why you do that is you want to balance the weight of the blade on the motor arm. Okay, so that's important. There's a very specific way as to how you install these blades on this machine so that you don't cause damage and you make sure that it's safe. All the saw blades, the teeth, if you look at them really closely, the carbides extend beyond this surface, this flat surface, so the carbides and the teeth extend beyond the flat surface. So please don't lay them down on a metal surface, because what happens is you end up either chipping or possibly dulling the tooth on the blade, and then the blade isn't good anymore. So whenever you're doing this, you'll see if I'm changing blades, a common thing that I do is I'll have a piece of wood that I lay it down onto, right? But I never set the blade on a metal surface because it's not good for the blade. Obviously, if you're using a dado set on this machine, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, you want to take extra precaution. If you're cutting, let's just say a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch path, and you get your finger in there, you're losing that much material. That's really bad. So it's important that you take extra care, extra precaution when cutting large paths like that on a board, okay? Because a slight mistake can be very, very bad for you. Number 11, use a push stick when sawing, when sticking, or use a push stick when ripping narrow stock, and when hands would be close to the blade. So, this is the push stick. I have several of them on the table saw. There will always be push sticks here. What you want to do is, if you're ripping on this machine, and this is the fence, so ripping is cutting with the grain along the long way of the board. If I'm ripping and I can't, and this is what I use, this is my gauge. If I can't fit the width of my hand between the blade and the fence, now please don't actually do this. I don't want to see anybody sticking their hand next to the blade. Don't do that. What I want you to do is kind of visually, all right, that looks a little bit too close for comfort, so I want to use a push stick then, okay? If you have wider boards where it's obvious, I would rather that you use your hand. Okay, you have your hand. If you have your hand on the material, you have a little bit more control than this narrow push stick. This narrow push stick has a small surface area, so you don't have as much control with that small surface area on the board. It's more possibility that it could twist, okay, on a wider board. But on narrower boards, this is perfect, okay, that's what we want to use. Just make sure that you split the difference. So I want to try to put my push stick halfway between the blade and the fence. Okay, a common thing for novice woodworkers is that we try to put the push stick against the fence because we don't want our hand anywhere near the blade. And I totally get that, I understand that. But you want to try to split the difference so that you're putting pressure dead center and you keep it nice and flat against the fence. Otherwise, when you put it against the fence here, it has a common tendency to try to push away from the fence, and then that would be an issue that we would have then in class. So make sure you split the difference with the push stick, but always use a push stick. If you can't visually see your hand fitting between the blade and the fence, use a push stick. Do not stand in line of the cut when operating the saw. I'm going to do several cuts for you for the demonstration, but essentially, when you're doing a ripping operation, try to keep your hip clear of this miter slot. So here's the T-slot for the miter. You want to try to keep your hip clear of the miter slot, your right hip. Okay? This way, if something does kick back, it's going to go past me and not into me. Most of us will probably, for a beginner woodworker, you're going to stand right here. Maybe you don't know any better. Okay, but now you should know better. Don't stand here because if you get a kickback, you're right in line. And you don't want to be standing right in line with the kickback. I'm going to tell you, it comes off there really, really fast. And with a board like this, it's going to cause a lot of damage. So make sure that you're not standing directly behind the board. Also be aware of the people that are behind you. If you see people talking or standing back there not paying attention, let them know you're about to make a cut and make sure that they move out of the way as well. Just in case something would happen, you don't want them standing back there because they could get injured. Number 13, lower the blade and be sure it's come to a full stop before leaving the machine. So we're not going to lower it every time that we use it, but if you have this machine as a cleaning assignment at the end of class, I would please ask that you lower the blade down, which is real simple. There's an elevation wheel here. If you lower this down, as such, now the blade's down below the table surface, and it's not going to cause any harm to anybody if they accidentally turn it on. Okay? Just good safety practice. Alright, so I'm going to go over parts with you really quickly, and then I'm going to do a couple demo cuts to show you the different things that we can do with this machine. Again, it's very, very versatile. So we got the miter gauge, okay? The miter gauge goes in the miter slot. This is actually called a T-slot, which is upside down T. So you slide it in just like that, and it locks it in place. Pretty easy to use. I'm going to show you how to do a couple cuts with the miters on this machine so you know how to set it up. Fence, guide bar, there's a guide bar here. Okay, on the guide bar there's a ruler. There's a piece of plexiglass that is fastened to the fence here, and there's a black line on that piece of plexiglass. If you use that black line is in reference to this ruler. So for example, if I set this to 4 inches, which is our first cut on this table saw with everybody on the keepsake box, if you set this to 4 inches, that line, now at 4 inches, that means that it's 4 inches between the fence and the blade. So anything I run through there is going to come out 4 inches. A common mistake that beginners do is they'll measure from the edge in 4 inches and make a mark. And then come over here to the table saw and set the blade that way. You don't have to do that. If you set the fence to 4 inches, no matter what you run through, no matter how many pieces you run through, it's going to come out 4 inches on the other side, regardless if your mark is there or not. Okay? So that's the proper way of using the fence. Set it to the width that you want. You don't have to measure and make marks. On the contrary, if you're cutting across the grain, doing a cross cut, we're going to make measurements. And I'm going to show you that later in this demo. Fence clamp is right here, so that's what locks the fence in place so it doesn't move. Fine-tune adjustments with this fence. If you push this down halfway where it just starts to apply pressure, you can then tap the fence with your hand and it'll move in small increments, okay? And that's what we want to do in order to make small adjustments on this. Lock it down halfway and then make small adjustments by tapping with your hand. The reason why we do that is because this doesn't have the next part, which is the fence microset knob. There is no fence microset knob on this machine. Okay? Typically what you do is you turn that and just move it ever so slightly so you can make fine-tuned adjustments to the fence so you get the exact measurement that you want. Not a big deal. Just lock it down halfway and tap it with your hand. Switch, we have a big switch in the front. There's a small green and a big red stop. The big red stop is so that you can pop it with your knee. That's the whole point of it. So if you're cutting, as I'm cutting here, you can see that I'm leaning over the machine. I can pop with my knee and turn off the machine. And that's a good practice to get into. Lock knob, there's a lock knob on both wheels. So the front wheel is an elevating hand wheel. The back wheel is the tilt hand wheel. Don't get them confused because sometimes what we accidentally do is we end up turning the tilt hand wheel to raise the blade and we go, oh, wrong one. And then we don't set it back to 0. If you don't set it back to 0, everybody that cuts on this machine is going to have maybe a 2 or 3 or 5 degree angle on their edge, which is really hard to see by eye. It's not that noticeable, but then when you go to glue your parts up, that's when it becomes noticeable because things don't sit flat. Okay, and that becomes a problem at that point. So please, if you have accidentally turned that tilt wheel thinking it's the elevation hand wheel, make sure you return it back to 0 so you don't make a bad cut on your own piece, but also you don't affect anybody else's cuts thereafter. Clean out door is on the side here. Okay, cabinet, the cabinet down inside, so underneath, I call this the throat plate, but underneath the throat plate if you look down inside there, there's going to be a bunch of sawdust that accumulates because as the saw's cutting, those gullies that we talked about earlier collects the sawdust and it spits it down into the cabinet. And then as the teeth come up on the upside, it's catching air, cooling down the teeth. So it's a good thing that we have those gullies on there and make sure that they're clear of the material, just above the surface of the material so that it's clearing all that sawdust and cooling the blade down. Otherwise, we end up dulling the blade really quickly. Raising hand wheel in the front, that's what raises and lowers the blade. Again, if you turn this one here, the blade will come up. It takes a little bit of force to get it to move. It's a pretty heavy motor that's inside there. Tilt hand wheels on the side. This one then tilts the blade. I'm going to do an operation where I do tilt the blade, so when I get to that, I'll show you how the blade tilts. Tilt scale is on the front here. There's no arrow on the tilt scale, so if you need to set it to a specific angle, we have to go through a little bit of a process to do that. Table. Okay, blade insert is what I call the throw plate. This does come out, and the part that's not on your paper is the splitter and kickback figure. So you want to make sure that this is always 100% of the time installed anytime you're doing a ripping operation, where you're cutting the board the long ways, and where you're cutting all the way through the material. There's a couple of instances in class where we're going to be cutting the dados or plows. I like to call them plows because they're going with the grain. Dados going across the grain, plows going with the grain. But if you're cutting a groove in the material, you're not cutting all the way through, you have to take these out. And it's really simple. There's a little white housing on the back with a black knob that inserts into. And all you gotta do is pull the black knob out. It's spring loaded, so it locks into place. And it's real easy to take in and out. Okay? So make sure that if you take those out, if you're doing plows or grooves, you're not cutting all the way through the material. Otherwise, leave it in for all other cutting operations. And then saw guard is what I took off earlier just to show you the blade. I'm going to put it back on because I'm going to do a ripping operation very shortly. Real easy to install that. There's a little hook on there. This metal bar has a little hook. I like to call it a Nike swoosh. If you pull this up and push down on the back, it locks into place. And then if you just pull up on the back, it lowers it down. So it's pretty easy to set this saw guard up. And it's also adjustable this way. So if you loosen this lock knob here, it slides to the right, it slides to the left. You can get pretty close to the blade without touching, and that's okay if you need space on this side. Okay, so I actually just set this up for my next cut. Alright, but always in place for general cutting purposes. There are some instances where we might need to remove it. Alright, so those are all the parts. Again, just review them.